Welcome to day 71 of reading for 30 minutes every single day for the rest of my life. Today we have The Fellowship of the Ring. I am at page, hold on, I'm gonna figure that out right now. Let's see. I'm playing the video back again.
I just didn't have my phone on. That was day 70 of reading every single day for the rest of my life for 30 minutes. I am at exactly chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Let's get it. Okay. Here we go. The Bridge of Khazad-dûm. Here we go. Look at how far I am in the book. That's all I have left to go. So let's get it. This timer starting now. Let's go. Chapter 5. The Bridge of Khazad-dûm. Khazad-dûm. The company of the ring stood silent beside the tomb of Balin. Frodo thought of Bilbo and his long friendship with the dwarf, and of Balin's visit to the Shire long ago. In that dusty chamber in the mountains it seemed 1,000 years ago, and on the other side of the world. At length they stirred and looked up, and began to search for anything that would give them tidings of Balin's fate, or show what had become of his folk. There was another smaller door on the side of the chamber, under the shaft. By both doors that they could now see that many bones were lying, and among them were broken swords and axe heads, and cloven shields and helms. Some of the swords were crooked, or scimitars with blackened blades. There were many recesses cut in the rock of the walls, and in them large iron-bound chests of wood. All had been broken and plundered, but beside the shattered lid of one there lay the remains of a book. It had been slashed and stabbed and partly burned, and it was so stained with black and other dark marks like old blood, that little of it could be read. Gandalf lifted it carefully, but the leaves crackled and broke as he laid it on the slab. He pored over it for some time without speaking. Frodo and Gimli, standing at his side, could see, as he gingerly turned the leaves, that they were written by many different hands, in runes, both of Moria and of Dale, and here and there in Elvish script. At last Gandalf looked up. It seems to be a record of fortunes of Balin's folk, he said. I guess that it began with their coming to Dimrill Dale nigh on 30 years ago. The pages seem to have numbers referring to the years after their arrival. The top page is marked 1, 3. So at least 2 are missing from the beginning. Listen to this. We drove out orcs from the great gate and guard. I think the next word is blurred and burned, probably room. We sleep many in the bright. I think sun in the dale. Flo was killed by an arrow. He slew the great. Then there a blur followed by foliar under grass near Mere. The next line or two I cannot read. Then comes, we have taken the 21st hall of North End to dwell in. There is, I cannot read, a shaft is mentioned. Then Balin has set up his seat in the chamber of Master Bol. The chamber of records, said Gimli. I guess that is where we now stand. Well, I can read no more for a long way, said Gandalf, except the world is gold, and Durian's axe and something helm. Then Balin is now Lord of Moria. That seems to end a chapter. After some stars another hand begins, and I can see we found Transilver, and later the world well forged, and then something. I have it, Mithril, and the last 2 lines Oin seek to the upper Murons of third deep. Something go westwards, a blur to Halling Gate. Gandalf paused and set a few leaves aside. There are several pages of the same sort, rather hastily written and much damaged, he said. But I can make little of them in this light. Now there must be a number of leaves missing, because they begin to be numbered 5. The 5th year of the colony, I suppose. Let me see. No, they are cut and stained. I cannot read them. We might do better in the sunlight. Wait, here is something. A large bold hand using an Elvish script. That would be Ori's hand, said Gimli, looking over the wizard's arm. He could write well and speedily, and often use the Elvish characters. I fear he had ill tidings to record in a fair hand, said Gandalf. The first clear word is sorrow, but the rest of the line is lost, unless it ends in yesterday. Yes, it must be yesterday, followed by day being the 10th of Nombre, Balin, Lord of Moria, fell in Dimril Dale. He went alone to look in Mirir Mare. An orc shot him from behind a stone. We slew the orc, but many more, up from the east, up the Silver Lode. The remainder of the page is so blurred that I can hardly make anything out, but I think I can read. We have barred the gates, and then can hold them long if, and then perhaps horrible and suffer. Poor Balin, he seems to have kept the title that he took for less than 5 years. I wonder what happened westwards, or what happens afterwards, but there is no time to puzzle out the last few pages. Here's the last page of all. He paused and sighed. It is grim reading, he said. I fear their end was cruel. Listen! We cannot get out. We cannot get out. They have taken the bridge in the second hall. Friar Loney and Nelly fell there. Then there are 4 lines smeared so that I can only read went 5 days ago. The last lines run. The pool is up in the wall at Westgate. The watcher in the water took Oyen. We cannot get out. The end comes, and then drums in the deep. I wonder what that means. The last thing written is in a tailing scrawl of elf letters. They are coming. There is nothing more. Gandalf paused and stood in silent thought. A sudden dread and a horror of the chamber fell on the company. We cannot get out, muttered Gimli. It was well for us that pool had sunk a little, and that the watcher was sleeping down at the southern end. Gandalf raised his head and looked around. They seemed to have made a last stand by both doors, he said, but there was not many left by that time. So ended the attempt to retake Moria. It was a valiant but foolish. The time has not come yet. Now, I fear, we must say farewell to Balin, son of Fundin. Here he must lie in the halls of his fathers. We will take his book, the Mother of Mosabul, and look at it more closely later. You had better keep it, Gimli, and take it back to Dane if you get a chance. It will interest him, though it will grieve him deeply. Come, let's go. The morning is passing. Which way shall we go? Asked Boromir. Back to the hall, answered Gandalf, but our visit to the room has not been in vain. I know where we are. This must be, as Gimli says, the chamber of Messerbul, and the hall must be the 21st of the north end. Therefore we should leave by the eastern arch of the hall, and bear right and south, and go downwards. The 21st hall should be at the 7th level. That is 6 above the level of the gates. Come now, back to the hall. I made a peanut butter jelly sandwiches up there. I'm gonna take a bite of one real quick. Shit. That's good. It's super good. I could eat that for a bit. Sorry, my neck. Okay. Damn, definitely can't keep eating that. It's taking up too much time. Okay. That was like a minute break. Okay. Gandalf had hardly spoken these words when there came a great noise, a rolling boom that seemed to come from the depths far below, and to tremble in the stone at their feet. They sprang towards the door in alarm. Doom, doom, it rolled again, as if huge hands were turning the very caverns of Moria into a vast drum. Then there came an echoing blast. A great horn was blown in the hall, and answering horns and harsh cries were heard further off. There was hurrying sound of many feet. "They are coming!" cried a Legolas. "We cannot get out," said Gimli. "Trapped!" cried Gandalf. "Why did I delay? Here we are, caught, just as they were before. But I was not here then. We will see what doom, doom came from the drumbeat in the walls, and the walls shook. "Slam the doors and wedge them," shouted Aragorn, "and keep your packs as long as you can. We may get a chance to cut our way out yet." "No," said Gandalf, "we must not get shut in. Keep the east door ajar. We will go that way if we get a chance." Another harsh horn call and shrill cries rang out. Feet were coming down the corridor. There was a ring and a clatter as the company drew their swords. Glamadring shone with a pale light, and sting glinted at the edges. Boromir set his shoulder against the western door. "Wait a moment. Do not close it yet," said Gandalf. He sprang forward to Boromir's side and drew himself up to his full height. "Who comes hither to disturb the rest of Balin, Lord of Moria?" he cried in a loud voice. There was a rush of hoarse laughter, like the falling of sliding stones into a pit. Amid the clamor, a deep voice was raised in command. "Doom, boom, doom," went the drums in the deep. With a quick movement, Gandalf stepped before the narrow opening of the door and thrust forward his staff. There was a dazzling flash that lit the chamber and the passage outside. For an instant the wizard looked out. Arrows whined and whistled down the corridor as he sprang back. "There are orcs, very many of them," he said, "and some are large and evil, black Uruks of Mordor. For the moment they are hanging back, but there is something else there, a great cave troll, I think, or more than one. There is no hope of escape that way, and no hope at all if they come to the door as well," said Boromir. "And there was no sign outside here yet," said Aragorn, who was standing by the eastern door listening. "The passage on the side plunges straight down into a stair. It plainly does not lead back towards the hall, but it is no good flying blindly this way with the pursuit just behind. We cannot block the door. It is key to..." Came from the drumbeat, and the walls shook. "Slam the doors and wedge them," shouted Aragorn, "and keep your packs as long as you can. We may get a chance to cut our way out yet." "No," said Gandalf, "we must not get shut in. Keep the east door ajar. We will go that way if we get a chance." Another harsh horn call and shrill cries rang out. Feet were coming down the corridor. There was a ring and a clatter as the company drew their swords. Glamadring shone with a pale light, and sting glinted at the edges. Boromir set his shoulder against the western door. "Wait a moment. Do not close it yet," said Gandalf. He sprang forward to Boromir's side and drew himself up to his full height. "Who comes hither to disturb the rest of Balin, Lord of Moria?" he cried in a loud voice. There was a rush of hoarse laughter, like the falling of sliding stones into a pit. Amid the clamor, a deep voice was raised in command. "Doom, boom, doom," went the drums in the deep. With a quick movement, Gandalf stepped before the narrow opening of the door and thrust forward his staff. There was a dazzling flash that lit the chamber and the passage outside. For an instant the wizard looked out. Arrows whined and whistled down the corridor as he sprang back. "There are orcs, very many of them," he said, "and some are large and evil, black Uruks of Mordor. For the moment they are hanging back, but there is something else there, a great cave troll, I think, or more than one. There is no hope of escape that way, and no hope at all if they come to the door as well," said Boromir. "And there was no sign outside here yet," said Aragorn, who was standing by the eastern door listening. "The passage on the side plunges straight down into a stair. It plainly does not lead back towards the hall, but it is no good flying blindly this way with the pursuit just behind. We cannot block the door. It is keyed gone, and the lock is broken, and it opens inwards. We must do something to delay the enemy first. We will make them fear the chamber of Messerboul," he said grimly, feeling the edge of the sword Anduril. Heavy feet were heard in the corridor. Boromir flung himself against the door, and he heaved it to. Then he wedged it with broken sword blades and splinters of wood. The company retreated it to the other side of the chamber, but they had no chance to fly yet. There was a blow on the door that had made it quiver, and then it began to grind slowly open, driving back the wedges. A huge arm and shoulder with a dark skin of greenish scales was thrust through the widening gap. Then a great flat toeless foot was forced through below. There was a dead silence outside. Boromir leaped forward and hewed at the arm with all his might, but his sword glanced aside and fell from the shaken hand. The blade was notched. Suddenly, to his own surprise, Frodo felt a hot wrath blaze up his heart. "The Shire!" he cried, and springing beside Boromir, he stooped and stabbed with sting at the hideous foot. There was a bellow, and the foot jerked back, nearly wrenching Sting from Frodo's arm. Black drops dripped from the blade. "Gone, and the lock is broken, and it opens inwards. We must do something to delay the enemy first. We will make them fear the chamber of Messerbull, he said grimly, feeling the edge of the sword Andorul. Heavy feet were heard in the corridor. Boromir flung himself against the door and he heaved it to. Then he wedged it with broken sword blades and splinters of wood. The company retreated it to the other side of the chamber. But they had no chance to fly yet. There was a blow on the door that had made it quiver, and then it began to grind slowly open, driving back the wedges. A huge arm and shoulder with a dark skin of greenish scales was thrust through the widening gap. Then a great, flat, toeless foot was forced through below. There was a dead silence outside. Boromir leaped forward and hewed at the arm with all his might, but his sword rang, glanced aside and fell from the shaken hand. The blade was notched. Suddenly, to his own surprise, Frodo felt a hot wrath blaze up his heart. "The Shire!" he cried, and springing beside Boromir, he stooped and stabbed with sting at the hideous foot. There was a bellow, and the foot jerked back, nearly wrenching sting from Frodo's arm. Black drops dripped from the blade and smoked on the floor. Boromir hurled himself against the door, and slammed it again. "One for the Shire!" cried Aragorn. "The hobbit's bite is deep. You have a good blade, Frodo, son of Drogo." Damn, okay, Frodo. There was a crash on the door, followed by crash after crash. Rams and hammers were beating against it. It cracked and staggered back, and the opening grew suddenly wide. Arrows came whistling in, but struck the northern wall and fell harmlessly to the floor. There was a horn blast and the rush of feet, and orcs, one after another, leaped into the chamber. How many there were the company could not count. The affray was sharp, but the orcs were dismayed by the fierceness of the defense. Legolas shot two through the throat. Gimli hewed the legs from under another that had sprung up on the Balin's tomb. Boromir had Aragorn slew many. When 13 had fallen, the rest fled, shrieking, leaving the defenders unharmed. Except for Sam, who had a scratch along the scalp, a quick duck had saved him, and he had felled his orc. He sturdy thrust with his bellow blade. A fire was smoldering in his brown eyes that would have made Ted Sandyman step backwards if he had seen it. "Now is the time," cried Gandalf. "Let us go, before the troll returns." But even as they retreated, and before Pippin and Merry had reached the star inside, a huge orc chieftain, almost man-high, clad in black mail from head to foot, leaped into the chamber behind him as followers clustered in the doorway. His broad flat feet were swart, his eyes were like coals, and his tongue was red. He wielded a great spear. With a thrust of his huge hide shield, he turned Boromir's sword and bore him backwards, throwing him to the ground. Diving under Aragorn's blow with the speed of a striking snake, he charged into the company and thrust with a spear straight at Frodo. The blow caught him on the right side, and Frodo was hurled against the wall and pinned. Sam, with a cry, hacked at the spear shaft, and it broke. But even as the orc flung down the truncheon and swept out his scimitar, Anduril came down upon his helm. There was a flash like flame, and the helm burst asunder. The orc fell with cloven head. His followers fled, howling, as Boromir and Aragorn sprang at them. "Doom, doom!" went the drums to the deep. In the deep, the great voice rolled out again. "Now!" shouted Gandalf. "Now is the last chance. Run for it!" Aragorn picked up Frodo where he lay by the wall, and for the others for the stair, pushing Merry and Pippin in front of him. The others followed, but Gimli had to be dragged away by Legolas, in spite of the peril he lingered by Balin's tomb with his head bowed. Boromir hauled the eastern door to, grinding upon its hinges. It had great iron rings on either side, but could not be fastened. "I am all right," gasped Frodo. "I can walk. Put me down." Aragorn nearly dropped him in his amazement. "I thought you were dead," he cried. "Not yet," said Gandalf, "but there was no time to wander. Off you go, all of you, down the stairs. Wait a few minutes for me at the bottom, but if I do not come soon, go on. Go quickly, and choose paths leading right and downwards." "We cannot leave you to the whole door alone," said Aragorn. "Do as I say," said Gandalf fiercely. "Swords are no more use here. Go." The passage was lit by no shaft and was utterly dark. They groped their way down a long flight of steps, and then looked back, but they could see nothing, except high above them the faint glimmer of the wizard's staff. He seemed to be still standing on the guard by the closed door. Frodo breathed heavily and leaned against Sam, who put his arms around him. They stood peering up the stairs into the darkness. Frodo thought he could hear the voice of Gandalf above, muttering words that ran down the sloping roof with a sighing echo. He could not catch what was said. The wall seemed to be trembling. Every now and again the drum beats throbbed and rolled. Doom, doom. Suddenly at the top of the stair there was a stab of white light. Then there was a dull rumble and a heavy thud. The drum beats broke out widely. Doom, 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 boom. Doom, boom, doom, boom, and then stopped. Gandalf came flying down the steps and fell to the ground in the midst of the company. Well, well, that's over, said the wizard, struggling to his feet. I have done all that I could, but I have met my match, and I have nearly been destroyed. But don't stand here. Go on. You will have to do without light for a while. I am rather shaken. Go on, go on. Where are you, Gimli? Come ahead with me. Keep close behind, all of you. They stumbled after him, wondering what happened. Doom, doom, went the drum beats again. They now sounded muffled and far away, but they were following. There was no other sound in pursuit. Neither tramp or feet, nor any voice. Gandalf took no turns, right or left, but the passage seemed to be going on in the direction that he desired. Every now and again it descended a flight of steps, 50 or more, to a lower level. At the moment, that was their chief danger, for in the dark they could not see a descent until they came on it and put their feet out into the emptiness. Gandalf felt the ground with his staff like a blind man. At the end of an hour they had gone a mile, or maybe a little more, and had transcended many flights of stairs. There was still no sound of pursuit. Almost they began to hope that they would escape. At the bottom of the 7th flight, Gandalf halted. It is getting hot, he gasps. We ought to be down at least in the levels of the gates now. Soon I think we should look for the left-hand turn to take us east. I hope it is not far. I am very weary. I must rest here a moment, even if the orcs ever spawned I hear are after us. Gimli took a arm and helped him down the seat of the step. What happened away up there at the door, he asked. Did you meet the beater of the drums? I do not know, answered Gandalf, but I found myself suddenly faced by something that I have not met before. I could think of nothing to do but try and put a shutting spell on the door. I know many, but to do things of that kind rightly requires time, and even then the door can be broken by strength. And I stood there, and I could even hear orcs' voices on the other side. At any moment I thought they would burst it open. I could not hear language. All I could thought was gash, that is fire. Then something came into the chamber. I felt it through the door, and the orcs then the orcs themselves were afraid and fell silent. It lay hold of the iron ring, and then it perceived me in my spell. What it was I cannot guess, but I have never felt such a challenge. The counterspell was terrible. It nearly broke me. For an instant, the door left my control and began to open. I had to speak a word of command that proved too great a strain. The door burst in pieces. Something dark as a cloud was blocking out all the light inside, and I was thrown backwards down the stairs. All the wall gave away, and the roof of the chamber as well, I think. I am afraid Balin is buried deep, and maybe something else is buried there too. I cannot say, but at least the passage behind us was completely blocked. I have never felt so spent, but it is passing. And now, what about you, Frodo? There was no time to say so, but I have never been more delighted in my life than when you spoke. I feared that it was a brave but dead hobbit that Aragorn was carrying. What about me? Said Frodo. I am alive and whole, I think. I am bruised and in pain, but it is not too bad. Well, said Aragorn, I can only say that hobbits are made out of a stuff so tough that I have never met the like of it. Had I known, I would have spoken softer in the inn at Bree. That spear thrust would have been skewered a wild boar. Well, it did not skewer me, I am glad to say, said Frodo, though I feel as if I had been caught between a hammer and an anvil. He said no more. He found a breathing painful. You take care after Bilbo, said Gandalf. There is more about you than meets the eye, as I said to him long ago. Frodo wondered if the remark meant more than it said. Check my phone. They now went on again. Before long, Gimli spoke. He had keen eyes in the dark. I think, he said, that there is a light ahead, but it is not daylight. It is red. What can it be? Gash, muttered Gandalf. I wonder if that is what they meant, that the lower levels are on fire. Still, we can only go on. Soon the light became unmistakable, and could be seen by all. It was flickering and glowing on the walls away down the passage before them. They could now see their way in front of the road sloped down swiftly, and some way ahead there stood a low archway. Through it the growing light came. The air became very hot. When they came to the arch, Gandalf went through, signing to them to wait. As he stood just beyond the opening, they saw his face lit by a red glow. Quickly he stepped back. "There is some new devilry here," he said, "devised for our welcome, no doubt. But I know now we are here. We have reached the first deep, the level immediately below the gates. This is the second hall of Old Moria, and the gates are near, away beyond the eastern end, on the left, not more than a quarter of a mile. Across the bridge, up a broad stair, along a wide road through the first hall, and out. But come and look." They peered out. Before them was another cavernous hall. It was loftier and far longer than the one that they had slept. They were near its eastern end. Westward it ran away into darkness. Down the center stalked a double line of toiling pillars. They were carved like boils of mighty trees, whose boughs upheld the roof with a branching tracery of stone. Their stems were smooth and black, but a red glow was darkly mirrored in the sides. Right across the floor, close to the feet of two huge pillars, a great fissure had opened. Out of it a fierce red light came, and now and again flames licked at the brink and coiled about the bases of the columns. Wisps of dark smoke wavered in the hot air. Stretching y'all. Okay. "If we had come by the main road down the upper halls, we should have been trapped here," said Gandalf. "Let us hope that the fire now lies between us and the pursuit. Come, there is no time to lose." Even as he spoke, they heard again in pursuing drum beat. Doom, doom, doom. Away beyond the shadows at the western end of the hall there came cries and horn calls. Doom, doom. The pillars seemed to tremble and the flames to quiver. "Now for the last race," said Gandalf. "If the sun is shining outside, we may still escape. After me." He turned left and sped across the smooth floor of the hall. The distance was greater than it had looked. As they ran, they heard the beat and echo of many hurrying feet behind. A shrill yell went up. They had been seen. There was a ring and clash of steel. An arrow whistled over Frodo's head. Boromir laughed. "They did not expect this," he said. "The fire has cut them off. We are on the wrong side." "Look ahead, called Gandalf. "The bridge is near. It is dangerous and narrow." Suddenly Frodo saw before him a black chasm. At the end of the hall the floor vanished and fell onto an unknown depth. The outer door could only be reached by a slender bridge of stone, without curb or rail, that spanned the chasm with one curving spring of 50 feet. It was an ancient defense of the dwarves against any enemy that might capture the first hall and the outer passages, that they could only pass across it as a single file. At the brink, Gandalf halted, and the others came up in a pack behind. "Lead the way, Gimli," he said. "Pippin and Merry next. Straight on and up the stair beyond the door." Arrows fell among them. One struck Frodo and sprang back. Another pierced Gandalf's hat and stuck there like a black feather. Frodo looked behind. Beyond the fire he saw swarming black figures. There seemed to be 100 of orcs. They brandished spears and scimitars which shone red as the blood in the firelight. Doom, doom, rolled the drum beats, growing louder and louder. Doom, doom. Legolas turned and set an arrow to the string, though it was long shot for a small bow. He drew, and his hand fell, and the arrow slipped to the ground, and he gave a cry of dismay and fear. Two great trolls appeared. They bore great slabs of stone and flung them down to serve as gangways over the fire, but it was not the trolls that had filled the elf with terror. The ranks of the orcs had opened, and they crowded away as if they themselves were afraid. Something was coming up behind them. What it was could not be seen. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form, of man shape maybe yet greater, and a power and terror seemed to be in it, to go before it. It came to the edge of the fire, and the light faded as if a cloud had bent over it. Then with a rush it leaped across the fissure. The flames roared up to greet it, and wrathed about it, and a black smoke swirled up in the air. Its streaming mane kindled, and blazed behind it. In its right hand was a blade and a stabbing tongue of fire. In its left it held a whip of many thongs. AI, wailed it. A Balrog. A Balrog has come. Gimli stared with wide eyes. Duron's bane, he cried, and letting his axe fall, he covered his face. A Balrog, muttered Gandalf. Now I understand. He faltered and leaned heavily on a staff. What an evil fortune, and I am already wary. Okay. We are at the top of page 344. That was day 71 of reading every single day for the rest of my life.